bring David out and talk about a little bit about what he's up to, because I think it's a really interesting story. So David, how are you?
Doing good. How you doing?
So we talked a little bit of AI. I don't know if you caught the conversation Cindy and I were having.
Well, first of all, Cindy's a great lady. She's a customer from a long time ago. What her company does is incredible, and
she's a fireball.
She is,
and just a fantastic person to hang out with.
Yeah, and hearing some of the stories that and the freight's going through is, everybody's experiencing it. But she did touch one thing, and I 100% agree. No one's going to let AI complete anything right now. Like I remember when I was doing truck brokering, even my best broker, I still made sure it was done right.
Yeah.
So I think I 100% agree with her. Like AI is not anywhere near ready to finish anything yet, and not be vetted and audited and done. But yeah, she's a great lady. She's a good customer. And
so you have, and I've said this before, is like so many of the freight tech companies, and you and I have been doing this a lot. I mean, I'm in a media business, which is kind of a boring part of it's not the sexiest thing for most people. You're in an offshore staffing business, or you were in an offshore staffing business. Again, a traditional business, but arguably built from the venture stage, arguably the most successful company. But you left and are doing something different. What's the story there?
I got a little bored. We did a couple of private equity transactions, and they're great people, and they're taking the company to the next level. And as anybody knows, with founder businesses, they want to move you out. So I was basically feeling like I need to get back in the game and do something. And I have a company I'm involved with in Latin America that does influencer, and we started using AI like a year and a half ago in the influencer market, where we can create content without them, having to do it. And then I asked my guys back in when I saw you last, I'm like, hey, can you create this voice agent that everybody's looking to do? And they're like, yeah, easily. And the thing with it is the technology. Anybody can have their 14-year-old kid create a bot to answer the phone and book a load. That's not where I think the value in the technology is. I think where the value is going to be in the technology is exactly what Cindy said, is having an ability to audit what it did easily. And that's what we're building. We're building a platform that is interactive, where conversations can go on and you can audit immediately, real time, instead of being transferred to an agent or for escalations. So we're building something that's going to handle audit and escalations in real time, which I think is where because she said it too, truckers are unsophisticated. They don't want to talk to a bot. They don't want to get on download an app. They don't want to hear from anybody. They don't want to tag into ELDs. So that's the segment that AI is trying to tackle. And because if it's load matching and load, you should do that automatically. There should be, load tendering and email back and forth and API. The voices, because there's so many inbound calls from unsophisticated people that don't know what they're doing, and tackling that is what we're doing. And then the outbound calling is creating a interactive dashboard that makes, we have 8,000 employees at Lean, and if we can make those 8,000 employees, twice as productive, then now there's more value.
So the business model for AI, or at least the part of the world that you're attacking, is to make the existing folks that are in freight, whether they work at Lean or work in an office in Chicago or Chattanooga, Tennessee, make them more productive. Is that sort of the concept?
Exactly, and we're tackling more industries than just freight. Even the publications we talked about, there's such a huge market, and the thing is that you have to make people more productive, because companies are scaling. Now the companies go from, everybody's saying the recession's over. They've been in an EBITDA monitoring and net income monitoring phase for a year and a half now. And now they're going to go back into growth phase, and they tend to throw bodies at growth and then scale. And so I think what we're trying to accomplish is slowing down that need for scaling fast with bodies, help people be more productive, help the effect of replacing an attrition, not so necessary to do it immediately, and just make people more productive. And if we could do that, then it helps with the attrition, it helps with the new people training. So that's what we're trying to accomplish, is doing that.
I mean, if anybody saw the growth of COVID, what COVID did in terms of the pressure it put on personnel, on resources, it was your business.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, I've never asked you this. What was pre-COVID, how many employees did you guys have in Columbia, or overall?
What was COVID? 2020? I want to say we had...
2019?
I want to say 2019 we had 1,100 employees.
And you ended up, you're at 8,000?
I think we're over 8,000 now, almost 700 customers.
And the majority of that was just how much was from existing customers versus new customers?
I mean, it's what happened is everybody in freight used to believe that you had to have the employee right there in your office or it didn't work. That was the mindset. It's always been the mindset in logistics. Like, I want to see my people, I want them there, I want a bullpen and pods, and that was it. And all of a sudden COVID hit and all these people went to work from home, and they realized, well, shit, if they could work from home, they
And
could
I
work
can
in
hire
Columbia.
a third of the price.
Right, and I can take all my really good people and put them in different, more productive, revenue-producing roles and more important roles. Then it just, that realization that it can be done remote is what the light bulb that went on that catapulted us into, I mean, the difference, like with that business, I had 5 years of no competition. Like, and it was shooting fish in a barrel. Like, there was nobody doing it. We were the first and brought it to market and started doing it and crushing everywhere. And in this business, like there's a lot of competition in this business. So I have to figure out, like, how am I going to compete with these really smart people that have raised money and done all this? And I think the advantages is we have is, one is my credibility, because I've had a logistics company haul for every broker. I consolidated partials, sold that. I had a nearshore company that deals with every broker in the country. Credibility there, and I think that my knowledge, 30 years in the industry, of what an employee really needs to make them more productive and effective, is where we're gonna have the advantage.
So where will we see CloneOps? Like, what is you've sort of touched on this, but in sort of detail, where would the AI a module actually exist in the workflow?
It's going to be a dashboard that's going to integrate with their systems, and it'll overlay, similar like some of the softwares out there that overlay and integrate into.
A piece of middleware that plugs into a
Correct,
TMS.
yeah. And we're also working on pretty cool stuff, like click to integrate. You know what I'm saying? Like, these integrations are, and the word integration, everybody, we have some really good integration specialists, and we believe that we can click to integrate. We can get with the McLeods and the Mercury Gates and the TMWs, and we could literally have on our dashboard, hire an agent, click to integrate, put them to work, and start working. So I think with that ease and doing the click to integrate is going to be a big piece of it too.
Do you think the platforms will be willing to do that and support it?
Yeah, we've already had conversations, and they're adjusting the way they do things too, because they're putting this integration to the forefront of projects to get done, because everybody's doing it and everybody wants it. So they're there, and I think what they're doing is, instead of taking the individual customer and creating the API, they're creating the API for all the customers. So they're reversing how they've done it.
Yeah, I mean, running a software business through Sonar, it's always painful, particularly with the on-prem. The cloud folks are fairly easy to do integration, because it's newer technology, newer APIs, things like that. And they built their business for that type of functionality. The legacy folks are always the most challenging, because you got to get into the development queue.
There's some old ass systems out there too.
There are, and especially when it's on-prem, because maybe they have a version from 2001, and it still looks like it was 2001.
Well, I know a company that has a version that doesn't even have a space for an email, because it's so old, before emails existed.
Yeah.
And they were trying to figure out, like, how do we do this?
How do we add email?
How do we add? And it was like their system's that old that it doesn't have a space for email.
Is it built on AS400?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Old
literally the green screens.
Yeah.
I always find it ironic that green screens called themselves green screens, because that was like, the green screens was like the one that you didn't want to be.
Didn't want to be. But they've made it cool again. Like,
the name is cool, right?
Yeah, I mean, they do a great job. They got a hell of a company and build.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there that have built great companies in the last 5-6 years. It's crazy, right? Like, just. And they're all getting market share and doing it. And I think this AI is going to be the same thing, but we're going to differentiate ourselves. And we have all the relationships and customers. Like, the customers are going to want it, but we got to make it easy, because they don't have the bandwidth to onboard another technology. Most technologies get onboarded and then they don't get used.
Yeah.
So this is one where, once it really gets used and it takes hold like wildfire, I think it's going to show a lot of productivity. And then ultimately, maybe you get rid of the bottom 10% performers and helps there. But our goal is just to make things more accurate, more efficient, faster, and better for the employees. And I think that's where the value is going to be.
I knowing Lean's business, you guys originally were known for offshoring call center work, but you ended up building a pretty large development staff, and that became a core piece of the business model. Do you feel like that experience has enabled you to sort of understand the mechanics of building integrations and software?
Well, I think I took the CEO role of Lean Tech when we spun it out in 2019, and I think it's a whole different game now. You can program with AI now. You don't need programmers there pounding away. Like, the technology is so advanced now. I think that it's evolving faster than it's ever evolved. I kind of consider it to like the iPhone. The first iPhone was a big brick, and it was $4,000 to buy and $4,000 a month to have. And now you can get the badass phone that does everything. They give it to you. It's $300 a month. So I think like the AI piece and technology and all that is like evolving to that, or it's similar to apps. And I think that it's going to come down to like just who has the best performing app, who has the best product that adds the most value and the easiest to onboard and integrate into your daily operation.
Yeah,
so like, but the tech did, you know, I never would have really understood tech, but I got into the tech, I understood it, I started, you know, learning the keywords, so I looked like I knew what I was talking about, but I definitely cannot write code.
You and I could, we can, you're probably better than I am in faking the technology side.
Fake it till you make it.
Daniel Pickett, I think that's back there, so he's the guy, and then he's got the, people confuse him as a redneck because of his voice, but he's actually knows all the technology, so he comes in unassuming.
Yeah,
you know, every tech meeting, and you know this, is like, you have the whole like, it's the two dogs sniffing to sort of figure out what they know. There's like this leveling up of knowledge. It's always fun to sit, as a business guy, sort of sitting in that initial meeting of like the two tech people evaluating each other to see.
It is, and they all have critiques of each other too, of what they could do better, but it's definitely interesting. I mean, listen, we're in a we're technology driven, and this is what we do. And you know, I'm also working like long-term future too of what technology really needs to be, because pretty soon you have all these AI agents calling out, and then these people don't want to take all these AI agent calls. So how we accomplish it where AI can eventually just talk to AI, and then just have
the AI talking to AI.
Yeah, the escalation and problem solving. Like that's what we should be doing, because it's the same thing every day, day in and out. You make a collection call, it's you have my invoice, when's it going to be paid? Like it's all routine stuff, and that's where you have the turnover and the people get sick of their job. And so like those are the things that we're going to accomplish first and foremost, and then eventually AI is going to talk to AI. We're going to sit back and life's going to be easy, and you're going to have a problem pop up, and then you handle it. You're going to put out fires. You know, the fire people sit around in the station and play cards and do nothing until there's a fire.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's similar to that.
You know, it's interesting in my business in media, AI is getting a lot of conversation, because that's the things that I think are most visible. Like I can write an article or a piece of it. I have found that it is not very good at original content.
Yeah.
It is very good at copy editing. In fact, I used to have a private copy editor. I would pay $500 an article to do it because he was really good at it. I started using some of the AI, you know, I use Grok, which is Twitter's version of it or X's version of it. And I actually found it to be as good as what a human from a copy editing standpoint. You got to be careful. Sometimes it can interchange words and switch phrases around. You're like, I didn't say that. But most of the time, it does a really good job of grammar and spelling and stuff like that.
When I think that's like a perfect example of how you still can't put it out there automatically without viewing.
You have to review it.
Right.
You have to have a human review.
And I think that AI is a long way away from not having to review. And that's why I think it's just important to have that human AI hybrid.
Yeah.
And then once that human AI hybrid, you solve it over years, that your AI that you use for years will solve it and get less and less, and then you're just doing major escalations and problem solving, and I think that's where it's going. And then, you know, we'll be like the Jetsons, and George Jetson eventually will do nothing. We'll be out playing golf while our AI's making us money.
Years ago, when Excel first came out, the view is that Excel was going to replace the accountants. But if you know accountants, they live inside of Excel. It actually created more accountants than before. It's kind of how I see AI is like, it's a tool that will make people more productive, but it's certainly not going to replace the jobs. But when you talk specifically about what you're doing, because we've seen a number of AI companies, Happy Robot, probably.
All good companies, good guys.
Where is the big difference between how you're thinking about product and how they're addressing product?
I mean, I want to definitely be careful sharing my thinking.
In front of an audience?
Because, you know, right now, like where everybody's in the stage, it's beginning, and I think my ideas are proprietary in what I'm doing. And I would just share with you that I think our dashboard and how we're approaching it is going to be what wins it. Like in our analytics, we're laying Power BI within our dashboard, within our AI. I'm creating stuff for like executives that I know when I run reports and do everything, what I look for every day. I have my like internal dashboard that I do, and I run and look at the numbers. We're creating stuff within that creates like AI dashboards, so you can have basically ask Siri what my load count yesterday was and what the average was. And so I mean things like that. I'm trying to work on cool stuff that saves time, that adds value, that basically pays for itself, but you get all this other stuff with it.
I would make the statement, if somebody were to ask me on the street, why can David win in this? And I would argue that having seen the kind of work and the depth of workflow at Lean, being an outsourced operation, you have a very clear understanding of the work processes that people get bogged in.
And I would say I know it even better because I did those works for 25 years in my own brokerage. I did every job that was done in the brokerage and know how to do it. And I think I would argue that would allow me to do it at Lean. I brought that knowledge into Lean, that Lean knowledge of knowing, because the very first customer at Lean was me.
Yeah.
And I onboarded myself like 100 times till I got it right. And if Robert will tell you, if Robert told you how many times I said, scrap it, this sucks, done, I'm not putting it over there, he'd tell you like he pulled his hair out for a year. And then when we finally started getting progress, I said, okay, I think this can be a business. And then, but you have to understand that because it's, and there's a thing with Lean too. There's two ways of Lean. You have the customers at Lean that literally take in charge of all of what they do. They don't want Lean involved. They manage the people. They manage the training. They have KPIs. They're on hands down in Colombia managing their workforce. Those people are extremely successful. Then you have the people that don't make it down there. They kind of manage it from here, but and those are the people that struggle and have the problems. So what I'm hoping this AI does is take those people that really don't have the bandwidth to go fully down there and train and help Lean take those customers and make those people better so they need less management. Yeah. You have AI creating KPIs that show them what they're doing every day. And then that takes that whole, I mean, there's probably 300 customers, 50% of Lean customers that are in that bucket. And I think that's where they'll excel and make it better. And
does the lack of scale matter for those customers? Is it a lack of resources or a lack of commitment that you typically?
I think it's a little bit of lack of both. It's a lack of commitment but I think it's not on their fault. I think it's their understanding of what Lean does from the beginning and not having a full understanding that you either got to take full charge, like this is an office you opened in Chattanooga. And if you open an office in Chattanooga, you wouldn't just have a temp service, put people there and not talk to them. Yeah. And expect it to do well. You have to put your touch on it, your brand on it, your culture on it. And I think that it's sometimes it's looked at as more third world labor getting bullshit jobs done versus your own office and what you have to do. And I think that those are the customers that don't have the resources to focus on it or the bandwidth and just don't have the desire to really put the effort into it. So I think that's where Lean and CloneOps together can be extremely beneficial for each other, is taking that bucket, because that's where most of their problems come from that bucket.
Are you completely out of Lean, by the way?
No, I'm still a shareholder of Lean.
Are you active at all?
I'm not active in working there operational-wise, board member, advisory. I haven't been in 4 months. I stepped away completely to focus on this.
Give you full autonomy and independence.
Yeah, and listen, I love Lean. I bleed Lean. My kids still work at Lean. It's all family. I love the new management. Chris is an amazing CRO. I brought him in. He took over sales. Jack Frecker just came on board. I mean, I can't even shine that guy's shoes. So he's in a whole nother league. And Jeff took over operations. I know there was the transition, there's hiccups, but they're really now starting to take. Leo Espina, he was just on the FreightWaves TV. He came in. He's their young shining star. Guy's smart as hell. So like I think next year is going to be a big year for them.
That's great.
Yeah.
It was interesting this morning, the conversation came up. John Larkin, I think you do.
Yeah,
John.
I love John. John's great.
We talked a little bit about, and this is sort of something I've observed, is a lot of startups in this space. Mm-hmm. And the companies that are most successful, you touched on it, but you can go through the list of whether we're talking highway, like we can list all the startups. The commonality is that all of those founders had spent time
in the industry,
have diesel in their blood, and know the applications of the industry. And I would say, at least my recommendation would be that if you partner with somebody who didn't know the industry, right? Yeah. When you started Lean, you partner with somebody who wasn't from this industry, is that right? Or
did I?
Did Robert?
No, Robert was from, so Robert had an agency with me of an LTL brokerage agency.
Okay, so he was also from.
Oh, he's from the industry, and he was down, his people were down in Colombia when I basically bought him and brought him in.
Got it.
I'm like, what? Your people are in Colombia, and then that's when we realized how valuable Colombia was.
Yeah, but I think that's a really important point, is having industry pedigree and experience actually is a big differentiator.
And I said it in the beginning, I think that's what's going to make sense, is when I go talk to people, whether it's Doug from Echo or Andrew Leto, any of these guys, like I talk to them, they respect me for one, they see what I've done, and they know my knowledge is there. Like, I understand, they don't have to explain anything to me. I know what you need, and I'll give you what you need. And I think that knowledge, that experience, and again, the credibility, I think, is the biggest thing. Like, who wants a tech company out of Silicon Valley and their systems with all their data, and who knows what they're doing with that data? Because data's valuable. So, you know, and I think that's key too, is a credibility to know that I got 30 years of trustworthiness in the industry.
Yeah, and it's, I think, the track record of what you built at Lean, but also just going back to the point that successful founders, and this isn't, I think, true of anybody in this room, is like, if you're not from the industry, you should find a co-founder that is, because your chances of success are exponentially larger.
For sure. Yeah.
Dan Lewis, by the way, and Dan was here yesterday,
Love
Dan's
Dan
a good
Lewis,
friend. But I used to use Dan as the exception to that rule of successful founders that have built businesses had come from this industry. Dan was the exception. I think Dan will do something great in his next run.
Dan's he's an incredible person, and you know, listen, what he did at Convoy was incredible too. It's just, you know, I mean, I think he just had a lot of stuff stacked against him, and
yeah, for sure,
it was tough. But I love Dan Lewis too, and I know he's definitely going to do something incredible.
Yeah,
it's going to be fun to watch what happens over the, you know, with nearshoring, revolutionizing logistics. It's going to be fun to watch how AI does it too.
So, David, I got to ask before you go, because I think everybody in the room has been wanting to know, is you have enormous amount of perspective on freight companies. What is the current market sentiment about the freight recession?
I think you're going to be able to tell in February what the real, I think we all want to be excited. I mean, listen, freight cycles turn fast. We've never seen this long of a freight cycle. Like, they usually turn fast, and for some reason, the ones that are struggling are not falling out fast enough. They're surviving somehow. And I don't know if they got all this PPP money or they got all this stuff they're carrying them through the day. But I think in December, January, February, there's going to be another fallout. When that happens, capacity is going to tighten up. Everybody's got high hopes for the economy picking up, and you know. But I mean, I don't see interest rates coming down a ton. I don't see businesses being able to borrow tons of money at low cost to grow. So I mean, I mean, I'm hopeful. Like, I hope it does, and I think that we're seeing a lot of anticipation of some growth coming back. And I think we're seeing a little bit more of the, let's focus on growth next year instead of net income coming back, which is good for companies like me and companies like Lean and everybody, because now they'll spend some money to prepare for growth. So it's
been a tough time selling software or services.
Yeah,
it has been a challenging market.
Yeah.
David, I appreciate it. I love your story. I love having you up here. It is lunchtime. Sorry to keep you guys, but appreciate it. So we're going to break for lunch, and we'll be back here at 1 o'clock. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, it's always fine.